I'm a counseling psychologist. Um, I am also the master trainer for life skills education. I've been working with Drishti for almost 10 years and I work as a program director for psychology department. So before we begin, it's very important for us to know what's going to be the agenda. So there are three things that I would be focusing upon. First is the SEN, that is, there are certain high incident disorders. Second, process of identification. And third, which is the very important one, which is the intervention for SEN in school, that is special education needs in school. All right. So first let's start up with it. So let's understand that what is the SEN high incident disorders that I'm talking about. There are three that I'm talking about. First is a specific learning disability. Okay. Second is autism spectrum disorder, and third is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So now let me tell you, I myself I'm the school counselor, and I do see a lot in the entire school population. There would be children who might be diagnosed with any three of them that you would see. So you might have a class where the child would be diagnosed with specific learning disability with ADHD, or there would be a child who would be diagnosed with autism as well as with ADHD. Okay, so this is the these are certain high incident disorder which are very commonly seen in the school age population. Um, Hi, good evening, everyone. Okay, so if if I have to say, first let's start with specific learning disorder. So when I say specific learning disorder, there are three areas that we talk about. Okay, first is dyslexia. Okay, second comes is dysgraphia, which now is called as impairment in written expression, and then comes is dyscalculia, that is impairment in mathematics. Okay, now if I have to say a child with specific learning disability is one who might have an average or an above average intelligence, but would have a very specific disability which can the child can get into understanding to make a learning difficult, very difficulty in learning. Okay, now it's an effect that the child's ability to understand or probably what he see or would hear, or a lot of times they also have the difficulty to link information from different parts of the brain. Okay, so there might be deficits in any of the basic central nervous function also. So if I have to say what is dyslexia, dyslexia is where children have trouble with reading comprehension. Okay, dysgraphia, that is impairment in written expression, wherein children have difficulty, trouble in writing, or it could be also with spellings or handwriting. And third comes this calcula, which is impairment in mathematics, where children have trouble with maths and arithmetic sums. So this could be normal calculations, or it could be word problems too, or probably it would be that they have difficulty working under time limit when it comes to solving maths. Now let's also understand that what are some common seems difficulties that is there in specific learning disorder. Okay, when we say reading, more specifically difficulty with comprehension and retention of material that is read. A lot of time we have seen that children have poor phonemic awareness. They have a slow reading rate, as well as have problem with reading multisyllabic word and similar words. Then comes is writing. Okay, when it comes to writing, poor grammar difficulty with sentences, structure, makes a lot of spelling errors. A lot of time, a letter reversal is also seen with younger children also. Then comes this difficulty copying from the board, which is called as visual motor integration. And then comes this my poor letter formation, letter spacing between the word, the alignment. Okay. Also, a lot of time handwriting plays a very important role. So whether the handwriting is legible, but it might be immature. A lot of time handwriting would be low on legibility. So we have to literally strain to see what are the child has written. Okay, then comes is a maths difficulties. Math is where the child might have difficulty memorizing basic facts, confusion in reversal of numbers, sequence or symbols, or they have also difficulty reading or comprehending word problems. So a lot of time, uh, you might have realized that if the child has a difficulty in comprehension, okay, when it comes to word problems and the child has difficulty understanding, it can also be related to reading comprehension, because word problems is all about my comprehension. Okay, so for instance, if you give an example, like, if I'm giving a very basic example, like this child, Arnav had 10 rupees and his mummy gives him 5 more. How much money does he have in all? Now, that if the child has read it, the child might find it a little difficult to comprehend. But if the same thing is being read by someone, there are high chances that the child would be able to understand it. Okay, that means that this could also be related to difficulty with comprehension, right? And then comes is problem with reasoning or with abstract problems. Now, coming to the next, which is autism spectrum disorder. uh, just a quick thing, have we anybody, I mean, all you can do is just need to raise your hand like this. Okay, can anybody, have you all, do any of your children have been diagnosed with autism in your school, in your class? Okay, I've got one raised hand. Anyone else? All right. Okay, great. All right. So now I'm pretty sure you all would be aware about the signs and symptoms of autism that the child would be there. Okay. So if I have to say, the very very typical, the child would, would have difficulty making eye contact with others, or would show very body language, very little body language, or facial expression while interacting. Would have difficulty developing relationship with peers. A lot of time they seems very uninterested in sharing their experiences. They have difficulty communicating with speech or with gestures, or they have difficulty with what the other people are saying, or they have difficulty using language, which could also be there when it comes to social communication disorder, which is called as pragmatic disorder also. Okay, now if I have to say, children who are being diagnosed with autism. Okay, so participants, is always important that we should avoid giving such label that this child had autism, this child has dyslexia, this child has ADHD. Let's say this child has been diagnosed with autism, this child has been diagnosed with ADHD. Okay, that's something that would also create a bit, it holds a very different mindset the moment I say, oh, this child is dyslexic, rather than saying dyslexic, if I can say that this child has been diagnosed with dyslexia. Okay, so we also need to be very careful with the kind of words that we have been using. So if I have to say, apart from this, if you will see, they make a very, when it comes to make believe or pretend play, they lack it, or they would show very fixation towards occupation of one thing of an interest. Okay, flapping of hands. Okay, now these are certain behavioral that you would see with children, and then signs of autism that would be there. Now coming to ADHD, now I'm very sure that you all must have read about ADHD. What is a, three areas that's there for ADHD: hyperactivity, impulsivity, inattention. So let's have a small quiz. Okay, so in the couple of slides next, I'm going to show you some statement, and we need to discuss whether it's a fact or a myth. Okay, so for all those who have raised your hand, if you can lower your hand, so that if you want to answer, then you can tell me, or you can put it up in the chat box. That's absolutely fine with me. Great. First one. People with ADHD can't ever focus. Is it a myth or a fact? Okay, myth, myth, myth. All right. Okay. I'm very happy to see that we've written myth, but can somebody tell me that why is it a myth? Anyone? Or you can put it in the chat box, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I think we have a very smaller group, so the more you interact, we can, they focus on multiple things at a time, their mind wavers. All right, yes, Bhagyashri, you're very true. What else?
I think since it's attention deficit, so by default we feel they cannot focus on attention. By its term
True,
only, I think it's applied. That's what is the assumption, right? That
true,
they have
true.
an issue with attention.
Hmm. So if I have to say what you rightly said, Shweta, okay, it's true that people with ADHD usually have trouble focusing. But if they are very interested in something, they may focus on
Yeah,
it
yeah,
intensely.
exactly. So I'm saying it's a myth because we are assuming by the term, like everyone just feels
Exactly.
because it's ADHD, so you should have an attention. That's not true. So I
Correct,
mean, I
correct.
was supporting it's a myth. My
Right. No, I
thing,
understood.
yeah.
Right. No, in fact, if I have to say, a lot of parents do say that, ma'am, anything of his interest, he will sit for hours. But when it comes to studies,
Yes,
concentration is
yes.
not there at all. Right?
Something with audio visual, I think they can sit for hours because that's something that attracts them, you know?
Exactly. True. True. Very true, Shweta. Thank you for sharing. We've got a couple of responses also in the chat box. Um, Miss Pratibha has said that it's difficult and not. Oh, that's a school name. Ma'am, may I know your name then? No, I can't hear. If you could put it in the chat box, that would be great. It's a deficit and not, it has absent in that. Very true. It's their brain wired in a way where they are not able to focus one at a time. All right. Sweetie, oh, Sweetie has also joined in. Hi, Sweetie. Okay, Miss Savita, that's Miss you.
Hello.
Hi. You said proper intervention can help them to sustain attention and also cope with reducing restlessness. Very true. Okay. And that's what the intervention is also what I would be coming to it also. All right. Let's go to the next one. All kids with ADHD are hyperactive. Oh, I could see Miss Savita nodding, so I can see her response. No. Okay. All right. Completely myth. Complete myth. Mostly yes. All right. To a certain extent, yes. All right. Okay. Miss Uma is also here. Ida says no.
Hello,
Sumitra
Karisma
says
Miss.
hi, Miss Uma. ADT and hyperactivity, maybe both. All right. So if I have to say, this is a myth. Okay. The very stereotype of kid with ADHD is that they race around, can't stop moving about. But not all kids with ADHD have hyperactivity as a symptom. And for those who do, hyperactivity usually goes away or it is lessened, okay, as they grow older. Okay. See, one is if the child has been diagnosed with any disorder, okay, especially like something like an ADHD or specific learning disorder or autism, it's going to be there with them for lifelong. Okay, it's a disorder. Now, what is important is how do we help them to manage? Okay, so now coming to this is a myth because if we will see the DSM-5 criteria also, there are three criteria that's there. One is a combined presentation where the child can be diagnosed with being hyperactive, impulsive, inattentive. Third is hyperactive impulsivity. Okay, and third is inattention. Okay, so yes, children, it's a just because the term says ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but it's not compulsory that all kids are hyperactive. All right, let's go to the next one. ADHD runs in families. Oh my god, I have been asked these questions so much that मैम आई मीन the parents have come said मैम मैं भी ऐसा ही था, मुझे भी ADHD था, मुझे भी पढ़ाई में difficulties होती थी. No myths. All right, they can be inattentive or impulsive too. All right, it's a myth. Miss Avita is saying it's a myth. So yes, to an extent, Anu. Okay, Miss Anu. All right, let's wait for a couple of more response. Okay. All right. So if I have to say, it's a fact. Okay. ADHD runs in family. Okay. Siblings of children with ADHD, in fact, are 3 to 4 times more likely to develop in it than siblings of children without the disorder. Okay. So yes, it is a fact that it does run in the family. Next comes only boys have ADHD. Yes, to an extent, environment and upbringing is bringing up more of kids with ADHD. Miss Anu, true. Bhagyashree has said myth. Miss Avita said no myth. All right. Sumitra has said it's a myth. No, it's a myth. Myth. So yes, if I have to say, yes, it is a myth. Okay, it's yeah. Although all boys are more than twice as likely as girls to be diagnosed with ADHD, but that does not mean that girls cannot be diagnosed or they don't have it. Okay, they are just more likely to be overlooked and seen and remain undiagnosed also. Okay, So the part of reason that ADHD can look different in boys than in girls. So girls tends to have less trouble with hyperactivity and impulse control than boys do. But yes, they may, I've seen a couple of cases where, we've seen, girls who are daydreaming, absent-mindedness is also seen. So yes, if I have to say, this is a myth. Coming to the next one. A child with ADHD has difficulty controlling his or her impulses. Okay. Yeah, Miss Ida, you've raised your hand. You want to share something? Okay, yes, yes.
No, it's by mistakenly, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Is it Ira or Ira?
It's Ira.
Ira. All right. Yes, yes, it's a fact, fact. All right. Okay, okay. So if I have to say, yes, it's a fact. Okay, though ADHD is rooted in brain chemistry, but when a child with ADHD blurt out things or gets up from the seat in the class, it's not because that he hasn't been taught that. Okay, that these behaviors are wrong. It's because that actually they cannot control their impulses. Okay, and okay, Miss Bhagyashree has to share that I met a girl who was diagnosed with ADHD, 16-year-old, and has a little brother, 5 who recently been diagnosed with ADHD as well. So yes, it runs in the family, and no gender specific. Very true, Miss Bhagyashree. In fact, thank you for sharing. And in fact, a lot of time when I interact with the parents are they always come up with this that ma'am, I was like this, uska bade bhai ko bhi diagnosis hua hai. Or a lot of time when the elder brother is comes up with the diagnosis, they immediately tell us that ma'am, I think I want to get my younger son also get tested because we do see some concerns with behavior also. So yes, it does run in the family, and definitely it is not gender specific. Though it might be seen that boys are twice more likely because they're very energetic or something, but there is no gender specific that we would see. All right. Now, that's for the quiz, and no more taking the myths and fact with everyone. Now comes the most important process, which is the identification. So, before I begin, would anybody like to share and tell me that how do you identify children with SEN, special education need, whether it is specific learning disorder, or probably it is ADHD, or it is autism spectrum disorder? Yes, Miss Nisha, would you like to share?
Yeah, so I am based in a junior college, and here the child having a lot of difficulty in terms of writing
Okay.
and in terms of the grades being depleting. And when you interview this, I particularly had this interaction with them. So with the help of their notes and the material which we write up, the judgment is taken, and then we get into further investigation.
All right. Okay. True. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Miss Nisha. Okay, we've got a couple of responses in chat box too. Miss Uma said through CBA curriculum-based assessment and for ADHD observation. All right. Classroom observation, case history from teachers, parents, and then assessment. All right. Miss Uma, for ASD, we refer them outside. Okay. But how do you identify? Like, if somebody comes and tell you, so for instance, if I come and if I say that and you're the school counselor or you're the school authorities, and I say that ma'am, there is this girl named Karishma in my class, and there is something different, can you please help me out to know what is it? So how would you identify?
The child, for example, the child will keep on repeating some words, the repetition
Hmm.
of words, and a child will not have a proper eye contact. So these are the few things that we can. And few children for learning disabilities, it is they will not be able to comprehend what we are speaking.
Right. Okay, okay. Thank you for sharing. It's very true that it's very easy that we can observe their behavior. Yes, Miss Nisha.
Sorry, it's the old one only.
Okay. Behavior checklist. Somebody said behavior checklist. Right. Right. I mean, a lot of time as a school counselor, it becomes very important that we have our own set of checklist to identify children with all the three disorders that could be there. The severity and frequency of exhibiting the characteristics, very true. Yes, Miss Anu, would you like to share? Miss Anu, you've raised your hand. Would you like to share?
Yeah, my name is
Yes.
Anupama. Yeah, I am mainly into a learning disability side. So what I do
Alright.
is I'm a counselor also. So what I do is generally a child is generally referred and brought as the teacher comes and say that is a learning issue, not able to write. Okay, what I do the first thing is I go for the observation of the classroom, sit in the classroom and understand. Can be even dislike for the subject or dislike for the teacher or the way they are teaching. Okay, sometimes if that is ruled out, maybe that attention factor is taken. I generally give tips to the teachers, and some one small attention can bring a lot of change and
True.
give the child a little bit of, if the child is not writing at the pace. What I do is I take the child to the resource room. Okay, make him adjusted in within few days of that helping push, take him back to the classroom, and then he is gelling. So that
Right.
is where I feel, though I have other educational tools also, but I feel that they have to move with the class. So it's
Right.
better to, we all work together in that.
True, true. In fact, it's,
Yeah.
it's the entire team. As a team, we need to help the
Yes.
child.
Yes.
It
Yes.
come, and I think because everything going online, we did as therapists or as school authorities, we did face a bit difficulty when it came to writing sample because children completely lost the touch of writing. Okay, and then now when they've come back to school and touch with the school have opened up and they're coming. Now we can see that okay, that gap is there where children are finding it difficult to cope up with it. Right.
Yeah.
So thank you, Miss Anupama, for sharing. In
Thank
fact,
you.
Sweetie has also shared impulsivity to restless academic issues, which is being affected due to inattention, fidgetingness. Very true. So if I have to say, this entire identification, we can break it down into 3 steps, okay, which I will come to it. Now, if you get any referral about any child, okay, as we all likely said, is the first thing is that we will do is we will go to the class, we will observe, okay, observe in such a way that the child doesn't know that the counselor or the special educator has come to observe the child. In fact, it is always good that we inform the teacher in advance so that certain academic concerns, if the child is facing, can also be observed. Okay, as simple as reading comprehension, because writing you can still see it. Okay, you can still look at the books and you can understand the writing and writing spelling errors. So that's a good idea that we can inform the teacher in advance that okay, ma'am, I'm coming to observe this girl named Karishma, and can you try to ask certain questions to her. So that would help you to understand academic concerns. Behavioral concerns, yes, distractibility, poor concentration is something that can be visible. A lot of time, younger children also exhibit autism spectrum disorder, symptoms of ASD. And I think that's the time where, as a therapist, we need to be very careful. In fact, if required, I usually take 3 observations for children to identify and understand and whether they fall into the category of ASD or ADHD, because a lot of time they do comorbid also. Okay, so now, as we have rightly said, if I have to say, the first process of identification is recognition. Okay, just 1 second. Yeah. Oops, I went a little ahead. Okay, participants, you're not supposed to see this. All right, just give me a minute. Sorry for the glitch. Just give me a minute. Okay, can I get a quick thumbs up to see if my screen is visible?
Yes, it
No,
is.
Oh, great.
Karishma, it is not. Now it's visible,
All
Karishma.
right. Thank you, everyone. All right. So first step is recognition. Okay. कि बाबा बच्चा तो आया. What are you going to do? How are you going to recognize? Okay. So now during this time, okay, the teacher or it could be the parent or the counselor need to recognize a consistent need or problem that the child is being exhibiting. Okay. Then comes is that now this recognition that you have done, you need to see if there is any discrepancy in students' academic concerns, or is it affecting the social concerns, behavioral, or is there any physical disability that the child would be having as per his age level. Okay, that you might see as a red flag to yourself. Okay, so if I have to say, it's always good that we see a lot of time we do have, like, now since teachers we conduct a lot of orientation for teachers and we make them aware. They might be aware what is ADHD. So they might just come and say that, ma'am, I think this child is very hyperactive, very impulsive. Can you please, observe the child? As a therapist, it's important that we keep all the areas in consideration: academics, behavioral, or emotional concerns, or in case to an extent that if there's a physical disability that they come up with. Okay, with this, what will happen is you will be able to identify that, okay, if it is academic concern, there are chances that it might also affect their attention. Okay, or if it is emotion concern, the child would be remaining aloof, would not speak to anyone, or has suddenly now been disinterested with his studies also. Okay, then comes this pre-referral. Okay, so when we say pre-referral, it's like an intervention to identify, develop, and implement an alternative education strategies for student. Okay, whom you have been recognized as a problem in classroom before the child is referred to a special education. Okay, so it's like a prerequisite thing that you have been doing in order to help the child, that if certain things that you do it in the classroom and that's something that's been helping, then at least some sort of a guidance, like how Miss Anupama said, right, that initially few strategies are being given and then the child is being taken up for remedial education or special education. All right, and in fact, if I have to say, the pre-referral team, okay, usually consists of teachers, the parents, or if there are any other education teachers that are there, the counselor, or an adult who is into the field of education, or who is associated with the child in academics also. And then comes is a referral process. Okay, so if any if any intervention in general education classroom, it is important that the student continues to experience uh, difficulties in school. Person may refer the child for a special education evaluation or probably an assessment, like how we all said that uh, we refer children outside for, like, children with ASD. We refer children to outside to get them self-attested to understand what is a developmental concern that they would be facing. And then refer for identification of eligibility of special education service that could be there. Okay. When I say that, first comes is the school person. That could include the teacher, the administration, the school principal, the teachers, okay, or the counselor that would be there. Then comes is the child who would be part of it. Okay, the child's parents definitely, or any guardian that they would be related to. And in case if there are any other people who are involved in child's education. Okay, a lot of time, so for instance, one of the school that I've been working, we have this girl in grade 1 who was being diagnosed with severe ADHD. Okay, and this was seemed to be for combined presentation as severe level. So as the entire team, and yes, if she has been diagnosed with ADHD, there were academic concerns also that we could see. So as a team, as a counselor, the parent already had a shadow teacher who was there with her online, who used to come to her home to support her for the online classes. They also had a special educator. One day we all came up together after the assessment to understand that what are the areas that I would be working upon as a counselor, what are the areas a special educator would be doing, how the parents are going to be like a mediator between all of them, how are they going to condition the child. Okay, that's the entire process as a team that we need to follow it. Okay, so it's not just one person taking charge of it, that okay, I'm the counselor, I'm going to take charge of it, baki koi nahi karega. It doesn't happen, because the child goes to various so even if it means you have to interact with the tuition teacher and make her aware, that's absolutely fine. Okay, now coming to the fourth one, which is screening. Okay, now screening for any evaluation for a child has to be done in order to identify that, baba, where is the difficulty. Okay, now it can be required in an evaluation form, okay, that the school might request, or the teachers or the counselor, as a counselor you would have your evaluation done, that is through your observation, okay. However, ensure that whatever we do, keep the parents aware about it, okay. Do not start anything without parents approval. Probably, as a school protocol, you would had something that, you take a signature or get their approval, okay. And in fact, parents of students who suspect that their child is in the need of special education service, they themselves come up and they come up with the counselor saying that they would like the child to get evaluated, okay. And if that's the case, ensure it's there in a written request, either to the school principal, to the counselor, or to the special educator coordinator. But this is something very important, because as a counselor, I'm sure we all know that confidentiality is extremely important, but ethically we need to take, involve parents to make them aware about it. So it's always good to not just inform the parents, but always keep the school in the loop. So that's why, if the school can inform us by giving a letter or something, that's also is going to be helpful. Now comes is the next is the identify benefits of early identification. So if I have to ask you all, can you tell me at what age can you diagnose or you can identify children with ADHD or autism? Anyone? Around 8? 5 to 7? 7? So if I have to say autism, okay, it can be as early as it can be detected with the age of 3-4 years. Okay, in yeah, absolutely, in preschool basically, absolutely right. So, and in fact, the best thing that we do is that the more we focus on pre-primary and primary section, the more we are able to identify the concern and more kind of a therapy that support is being given. Okay, see, I know that suddenly the exams of ICSE was declared, and all the 10th standard we got a lot of referral that concession has to happen. We've been telling parents. I personally have met so many parents when I've explained them the report that concession is very temporary. This is just for the examination, but what is required is therapy. Okay, let it be learning support program, let it be counseling, or we've recommended OT or speech or anything to the child. Okay, but as a therapist, I think it's very important that we go in for early identification. But a lot of benefits that's there for early identification. One is that it leads to early intervention, and that is something that is very important. And in fact, if I have to say, this is one of the most essential part of remediation. Okay, now a lot of time the children may have not yet faced academic failures. Therefore, it becomes easier for us to work with them until they retain their motivation to learn. Okay, and at a very young age, they have not yet developed that compensatory strategies, and that's something, it's like you're reteaching them and making them learn, and then the barrier of remedial process loosen up. So it really helps the child also to learn the strategies quickly, implement it. Okay, and in fact the research has shown that children who receive assessment and remedial service at a younger age were better able to cope with this disability and had a better prognosis than who received the help later. Okay, so this is not Karishma Drolia saying, but the research saying at this point of time. So how I work in school counseling usually is I know 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th has to be focused because of the concessions, and irrespective, whichever both that we talk about. So first focus is on them, then immediate focus comes up with the pre-primary and the primary section, because that's the population where early identification works wonders with them. Okay, now comes is the intervention in SEN in school. Okay, so if I have to ask anyone, what kind of intervention have we done in order to help children with ASD, ADHD, or with SLD, specific learning disorder? Any specific intervention that we have used? Okay, remedial therapy. Okay. Anyone else who would like to try occupation therapy? All right. Someone spoke about checklist. I think was it put it in the chat box? Oh, okay. I don't remember who was it.
I think a
But
checklist and an informal assessment tool is a
right.
good way to analyze the child. Yeah, so we
Absolutely
have created like an informal assessment which we run across once a referral comes to
fantastic.
understand as a special educator, to
Miss Shweta, you're on mute.
yeah, sorry, I didn't
No
realize
problem.
it. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I think checklist provided by the send to the HRTs to the teachers and an
Absolutely.
informal assessment run by the special educator or counselor. Obviously, counselors don't have; they just have an informal session with the learner.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and
if I have to say, the next is about strategy. Okay.
right,
So if I have to say now, these are certain strategy checklists that we can list down. Okay. First is the special needs student should be within the close proximity to the teacher or the teacher's assistant. Okay. And this can happen. Okay, I do understand. I'll come to the online aspect also of it. But if this child is coming to school, okay, so then this could be like, making the child sit close to the teacher, like on a, first or the second bench. Okay. With this, what happens is the teacher is constantly monitoring how much have you done, have pay attention or focus. Okay. Now, a lot of time when it is online, simple is, we've been using various platforms. So I work on Google, I have Zoom as well as Microsoft Teams, but you have a good option where you can pin the child and you can send a private message to the child, connect the later with the child. So that's also something that would give you one-on-one. So that we need to take care of it. Second comes is like, create like a special location where, the child can take test, okay, or can revise while he's been seated, before the examination. Okay, so that then, the child is free from any distraction. So just ensure that, the place that the child has been sitting is doesn't have any distraction. As much as possible, let's, teach the child or, energize the child in such a way that, they eliminate as much clutter as they can. Okay. In fact, this will help you keep distraction to a minimum. Okay, so if the child is coming to you, ensure the table is very clean, no more clutters. Okay, try to avoid presenting instructions or direction only verbally. Okay, use graphic organizer or, as well as any written or any graphical representation. That is something that would be helpful. Okay, I've got a question. Give me a second. How can you do it while online classes are done? Miss Anupama, I'll come to it. I'll just finish this and I'll come to this question. In fact, if required clarification, reminders can be given as a regular, as necessary. But what is again important is communication between the home and school needs to take place. आप जो पढ़ा रहे हो, a lot of time parents are, मैम मुझे पता ही नहीं था आप ये सिखा रहे हो, or I didn't even know that you're doing this work. Okay, so it's very important that, we have this at least once a month. Ensure you meet the parent, give them the feedback, they give you the feedback about, how the child has been progressing. And with this also, your relation and interaction with child and their parents can be, they value you, then they know that, okay, there is consistent therapy, that's the need that can be given. Okay, now coming to the question that Miss Anupama had asked, that how can you do it while online classes are going on? Anybody would like to try and tell me that have you tried doing any of these things online or any other strategies? Engaging them. Okay, so Miss Anupama, just to ask you, which platform are you talking about? Like which platform do you all use?
No, I haven't taken. I have done only in the online, I mean, so the offline classes.
Offline.
But I am always very curious because many people give the answer of engaging them. How is that
Right.
engagement done?
Right. So Miss Uma just wrote engaging them and now showing PPT. Okay, so I'll tell you. Yeah, sorry, it was anybody else sharing?
Can I?
Yeah, sweetie.
What I have done for the students with ADHD, especially on online basis, like the intervention, I always ask the parents also to intervene that time. So I give certain parental guidelines that they can ask, they can keep the child engaged in household activities. They can give some responsibility, and then the child will be engaged in that household responsibility, and then they will be rewarded accordingly if they do that. So in that way, that the child will be engaged at the same time he will be distracted. At the same time, the restlessness will also be deteriorated to some extent.
Like
Okay.
Karishma ma'am, you said that
Yes, Miss Uma.
like showing graphic organizers. So we often use PPTs with colorful pictures, and also they are engaged in that, and their attention span also is staying there.
Right, right. So, if I have to say, see, at first, your hygiene factor, that's what I always call it. Certain things that has to be there. First, camera has to be on in an online session. Okay, and now though I think the children have got so used to with, ma'am, my camera is not working, this is not it. So I will tell them that okay, now you're going to be marked absent. Then immediately the camera goes on because they feel that okay, now she's going to mark me absent. Okay, the first thing comes is my camera has to go on. Second, if I have to say, what rightly we said, like Sweetie also said, Miss Uma also said that it's so important to get them engaged because we are not physically seeing the child. Then this is where comes is that how can I use this screen to immediately convey the same thing to the child. Okay, so yes, showing presentation, doing graphical representation works wonders with them. In fact, there are a lot of apps that's there, like a Kahoot app is there, where they can, it's like a quiz. Okay, so when such things have to be done, if you have like an entire 30 minutes, okay, we start, it's called as a starter. Okay, you start a session with something which is very catchy, and then followed by which you take it ahead with what you need to share. Now even as simple as, it's like using the technology at this point of time for children who are online. So it could be as simple as I put up in the chat box, the child replies, or if I feel the child is not replying, the camera is on. Having a virtual conversation also works a lot with them. So these are certain things that would be helpful. And in fact, a lot of time, I do show my children that okay, hey, do you know what, I'm in school, and I really miss that you were there in the school. Let's keep our finger crossed, you come back to school. Would you like to see my room, because you've been missing out? Okay, and I show them my room. Okay, so that again shows that again I make sure this room is very nicely been organized, and then the conversation start is, what about you? Would you like to show me your table and tell me? Okay, and that's where okay, so can you shift a little bit, can you keep your table clean? Okay, so it could be as simple as it could start up with that. Okay, Miss Savita has said as Zoom responding through polls. Absolutely. Yeah, show thumbs up with your fingers, respond to writing on papers. Yeah, I mean that's the entire, the aura, I mean, the entire online thing has completely changed. Yes, very true, very true. We have somebody who has raised a hand.
Yeah, that's me, Rebecca.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I just
hi,
wanted to
Rebecca.
share that I came across this site called the Go Noodle app, the
Oh, yes.
Go Noodle site, where they have activities like the figure of eight or some activity that you can do before you begin class, which gets them to be a little more attentive and alert. And I also do something like a fun attendance because I have a really small class. So during that time, I get them to think about one specific thing related to what I'm going to teach them, and each one gets to say something. So it happens
Right.
quickly, but it also gets them to be attentive.
Very true, very true. So I hope, Miss Anupama, you got a little uh, understanding. I mean, you got some ideas about how it works.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, great. Now comes is classroom management strategies. Now this is something I think online was, ma'am, I can't hear you, ma'am. Like I had a technical glitch, and I still remember the fear that I had when I had to first time use Microsoft Teams. Okay, uh, very difficult. So I think as therapists, as teachers, hats off to how we have managed the entire pandemic with not just household but the digital platform also. But classroom management strategies plays a very important role in helping teachers, to achieve their learning in the classroom. Okay, now these strategies could also be like, helping them to know what is expected of them, increasing the task on hand, or reducing any classroom disruption. So one of the strategies that I usually use is that, by the end of the class, I have like everybody saying, bye, ma'am, bye, ma'am, bye, ma'am. And it is so chaotic. And I said, okay, we're going to play one game. To the count of three, everybody is going to leave. Now, whoever has been left will be out. And then they immediately, like within a second to the count of three, everybody leaves the room. Okay. See, these are certain strategies that it just came up. They all are leaving. I mean, I'm on time. I know I have to go to the next class. Okay. But there are certain classroom strategies that, we can use, not just online and offline, is also simple, that to get their attention before we start expressing any key points. Okay, I understand that we cannot take the name of the child, but if it is online, it can be as simple as, Karishma, can you read this for me? Okay, so I'm getting the understanding from the child whether the child is paying attention or not. Okay, but classroom management strategies are the most important and one of the most crucial thing that would really help the teacher also to manage certain behavior also in the classroom. However, if I have to say, now there are certain teaching strategies that have been very helpful, that we have seen, and they all are trial and tested by the entire team of Drishti, because we work with children and with the schools. Okay, the first comes is cooperative learning. Okay, now here what we can do is we can encourage students of mixed ability, okay, to work together. Okay, by they can go out in a breakout room, or having them small classes, or doing a small activity, okay, which will help them develop their self confidence and enhance their communication. Okay, so this is where online, if it is, then we can have like a breakout room, or now since a lot of school has started with hybrid model, those children who are online, they are functioning online, then in the class physically what children are there, we divided them into group with mixed ability. So I'm again using my inclusion over here. Okay, so this is something that's been extremely helpful and been helping children. Scaffolding. Okay, now in this teaching strategy, it what thoroughly it focusing on raising the students ability one step at a time. So what we do is we remove support as the student progresses. Okay, so for example, I'm doing math, okay, and I've helped the child to help the child to solve one problem. The next is I will step back and I'll tell the child that now you help yourself. Now you tell me what will be your answer. Now this is a typical thing that every teacher will do, right? What we can do is we can tweak it in a way that something that the child finds it to be very interactive. And in fact, scaffolding can also be part of cooperative learning also. And here, in fact, the peer buddy system will be much more helpful, so that my friend is also helping me, and at the same time I myself I'm able to find out an answer to itself. Okay, then comes this use of tangible rewards. Okay, so enhancing healthy or any positive behavior by providing any tangible reward, like making them the monitor, sitting with a friend for a day, I mean not close, maintaining social distancing, but also ensuring that we're addressing unhealthy behavior quickly in order to help the student realize about it. Now what really happened is, a lot of time what I have seen is that a lot of time uh, these rewards are not being given immediately. Okay, so what happened is, today I went to the school and this child was faced, the child did very nicely, and I said, okay, chalo kal main usko reward dunga, I'm going to give him a reward tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm not going to school, then I'm going on Friday. If I go to school on Friday, by the time the child would only forget that, why are you giving me this, right? Immediate reward has to be given immediately, whether it is tangible, something like they physically do it, or something like, buddy, I really like the way that you were, you use these words like hardworking in the class, focused, I really liked it, can everybody clap for them? Okay, so grade wise also it is very different, where what kind of reward you would give it. I cannot give a star to my ninth grader child at this point. He'd say, what's wrong with this counselor, right? For them, much more an appreciation in front of them, having a very casual relation and telling that, okay, you know what, I really like this, why don't you help me out with, or making them part of the student council. That is something there, as compared to the pre-primary, where even everybody would clap, or the teacher says good job, and that works for them. Okay, but all I'm saying is, first thing, it has to be given immediately. Second, if the child has inculcated in any unhealthy behavior, it is important to immediately inform the child or correct the child. Now that's the right word to use. Okay, in fact, I tell parents also, a lot of time you keep saying that, I disciplined my child, my child needs to do this. I said, use the word correct. Okay, the child also will know that, okay, my mom dad corrects me. All right, then last comes is pure tutoring. Okay, now it is a very flexible, very pure mediated strategy that involves student with sitting with the academic tutor as well as tutor. Okay, so typically it's like, higher performing student is paired with a lower performing student in order to review the curriculum, or any other academic. So very similar to peer buddy, but here we are ensuring that, a higher functioning academically, a child can be made to sit, with a child who needs a little more support when it comes to the academics. Okay, I hope we are a little clear about these 4 strategies. They have been tried, done, tested, and we've been using it, and we have seen a lot of good responses amongst children also at this point of time. Okay, all right. Now, certain application or strategies. Now, though there are some of these interventions can be applied as strategies overall, but student with SEN have different needs. Sorry, that's a typo. Okay. Uh, what is it? It's very crucial to understand at what strategy to execute for which child, because every child will have a different need. Every child will have a different ability. Okay, or they might have some sort of a disorder which would be very different. Okay, and then it is also that the teacher should be aware about this basic strategy, and I think, as I said, it's the entire team that we need to work upon, as that would help them to know that what are certain strategies or that's being used. Okay, now coming to it, that what teachers can do to help children with ADHD. I think a lot of time what they only do is that oh, go to the counselor. The counselor will help you, but teachers can do a lot of things. Okay, first is allow for movement. Okay, when I say allow for movement is where you allow the child to move around. Okay, to it is okay, baba, for the child to fidget. Now you cannot expect, I mean, I would not expect myself as being focused for throughout this session, which is for 1.5 hours. I have my own limitation. I can only focus for an hour, and then at least 2 minute ka break de do. Let me go drink water and come back. Right? So it is okay at times if the child is fidgeting. No child is perfect. All right. Also at the same time that it's preferably providing like an opportunity for them to have a physical action. Okay. Now it could be for offline, it could be as simple as that, Karishma, can you erase the board? Karishma, get this from another class. So there are a lot of chances when child physically gets up, do it, will sit, so he would have drained some sort of a physical energy. Next comes is online. So what we can do is we can have like a scheduled break for them. Now I know my child cannot focus during the longer lecture hours. So in that, the teacher can allow him to get like a 2 minutes or a 5 minute stretch break. Okay, go wash yourself, go to the washroom and come back. Okay, some sort of a physical like a break that can be given to him, but ensuring that the gadget like a cell phone and everything is not used at that point of time. Now this is what we can take a support for online. We can take support from parents also. Okay, next comes is establishing classroom rules. Now teachers can actually, if I have to say, create a very simple and very short classroom rules, like something with the routine to help them being on task. Okay, and if they successfully complete the routine, they will be reinforced with positively, or if they're unsuccessful, okay, they can be helped and understood that why, what is the reason why they have faltered or they've gone wrong. Okay, now simple basic classroom rules that we would follow in the school is what we all know. Okay, but online becomes very difficult to make them follow certain rules. So the best thing is, I'm sure we all would have assemblies. The first thing that I do is I reach out to them through assembly. Okay, first is I know, oh hey, these are certain etiquettes, these are certain code of conducts that we follow. And then I've made one like a short, very creative one for the teachers, so the time they start their day, that's been reflected on their screen. And then after every after every class, or maybe after 2 classes, is being again posted in their chat box, so that it gets reminded them about certain rules. And definitely the teacher has to keep reinforcing with the kind of the rules that the teacher would have made. But what is important is, if they make rules with the children, it would be much more helpful, so that it's like a contract that you can sign from both the parties, like, okay, I've also agreed, the teacher has also or the children has also agreed to it. And last comes is use of instruction. Now it is very beneficial to give 1 or 2 step short directions, or a very clear direction, rather than to overload them, which would lead them to become much more distracted. So if I know that I have this girl named Karishma in my class who has been diagnosed with ADHD of inattention. So first I will do is, if she's online, I will ensure that her camera is on. Second, I will ensure I first get her attention before I start teaching. Even if it means I need to take her name, even if it means I need to say that, oh, who is this? Who is this roll number? Whatever is my roll number, you take the name indirectly. Okay, or else if the child physically is there, you can have the routine set up, you can ensure the child is made to sit close to you, You can give us, physical movement, allowment of movement can happen. Okay, so there are various strategies that you can do it online as well as offline for children also with ADHD. Now, sorry. Now coming to it, that what teachers can do to help with children with special learning, specific learning disorder. Okay. Now first is, helping them with small and achievable goal to be accomplished. Like at a start, if I say that 10 things to be done, Baba, nobody will do. I will also not do that. What 10 things she's saying. But if I break it down into small but achievable goal, okay, that's something that is more important. The first two step I take and I've achieved it, my confidence is there. So I'll say, okay, now my motivation also will be there. Okay. Second comes is understanding the type of learning. Is it visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? And then you take steps to make sure that the type of learning is reinforced in the class and during the home study. Okay, if it is more of a graphical, I know then concept map would help for them. If I know it is more of auditory, then it could be recording, recording by the special educator or with the parent and they're listening. Okay, or it would be more of a writing, so they write it down and they learn. Also, a lot of time using of chunking method has really been helpful, or breaking the learned material into parts or chunks is what is called as. And last comes is encouraging them to use more of diagrams and organizer to manage their studies. And I think like today I told one of the I mean in one of the schools that I was there today, they all have a smartwatch, and I told them, I said, do you keep a reminder for your own self that okay, this is what I need to do? And they all looked at me and they're like, ma'am, why do you need to do that? I said, you have a technology, you have a smartwatch in your hand, why aren't you using it? Okay, so giving them reminders or like a timer that can be there, that's also something that's very helpful for them. Okay. Lastly, what can we do with children? What teachers can do with children who have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. First is integrated sensory activities. Now what happens is that most children with ASD are over or they're under reactive to sensitive stimuli. So it's important that we understand the trigger for some student and schedule a sensory break for them during that activity. Is it too much of, is it that the bell rings and that's what triggers the child, is what we need to first identify. Okay, so that we ensure and give pre-planned, and we say that okay, now the bell is going to ring, we're pretty sure this is a kind of a it triggers and this creates sensory stimulation with her. Let me see if there is something else that I can do. Okay, next comes is use of social stories. Now this works wonders. If you will just go to Google and you'll search social stories, you'll get list of things. Okay, now this will help them with interaction and communication. So a story can also be made about change in routine, and it is very easy. As a therapist, you can make a social story by yourself. Okay, and the more it includes action, the more it includes physical activity, that's something that's very helpful. So I know I'm running a short of time, but just to share this, so what I did for one of my students was that this entire group of children came up with the concern that they were very, very notorious, very mischievous. Okay, so I said, okay, so I took a session with them where I said, okay, now I'm going to be a bird. So I started flying like a bird. Okay, and I said, you all also start flying like a bird. So they all were flying like a bird. I said, I go to the right, I go to the left, zoom, winds are coming here, and then I pretended as if there is a tree, and I banged myself on the tree, and then I fell down. So what will happen to the others? What will they do? So immediately they said, we'll help each other. Okay, and then I pretended and they all came up with it. Okay, that's the kind of social stories that you all can also use it. Okay, so it's not just that we stick to Google. It could be the more physically that you do it, the more creative we become. That's also something that's helpful. And last comes use of visuals like drawing. Okay, any visual, anything that can be made for students to understand rules or explaining social situation, that's also something that would be very helpful for them. Okay, I have a question in the chat box. Ma'am, can social stories be used for ADHD? It can be used for even children with emotional concerns. So not just with ASD. Now see, again, Ms. Uma, it's important that we know that if it is ASD, then what area that you're working upon. Okay, is it communication? Is it social skills that you're teaching? Okay, if it is ADHD, ADHD would be more of following rules, following routine. Okay, but with ADHD and ASD also positive reinforcement has to happen. I have to keep doing that for at least next 4 sessions, so they get used to it, especially children with ASD, because they're so used to with following a routine. Okay, so that's something that would be very important. Okay, so yes, I end my masterclass today. I am here for any question answers if there is anything that you would like to share or ask. And before anyone leaves, I have a feedback link which I would be sharing right now. I would request everyone to share it and give us a feedback. It's always wonderful to listen from all the participants. So I'm just posting it and then we can have a discussion. Just give me 1 second. Yes, I think Nisha has raised her hand. Nisha? Yes.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you for all the great insights that you shared up. I had a question there is a child with me right now. He is in his grade 12,
Okay.
and there has been no concession up till 10th, but we know that LD is there and he was scoring really low. And I see that his self-esteem and other things are also disturbed. So right now in grade 12, how can we help such grown-up children?
Right. Has the psychoeducation assessment been done?
Yeah,
Is he being diagnosed with learning disorder?
yeah.
Okay. And what about ADHD? Any emotional or behavioral concerns came up?
No, nothing on those lines. It's just
Oh,
he has reading and comprehension issues, and that is the only concern which he has.
okay. Now, if I have to say, Miss Nisha, yeah, see, at grade 10th, they are a teenager, okay, which would not have their own preconceived notion about a lot of things. But one thing that I'm pretty sure is that, somewhere, okay, low self-esteem will be a concern, because somewhere the student would know that as compared to her grade students, okay, she is not as far as the others are. Okay, so one is that we can start with behavioral wise, we can work on her self esteem. Second is that we can give her certain study skills, okay, such as study method, time management, something that will be extremely helpful for a forthcoming examination. Okay, like time management, study skill, teaching concept map, okay, that you start with one chapter, okay, and the same thing the child can replicate in the other subjects also. Okay, now that is something that would be very helpful for the child at this point of time. And obviously the concession to milega hi, there is no doubt about it. Okay, but two things that we can do: constantly motivating her to build her self esteem, okay, and also motivation to study. Okay, and also the same time the study methods, time management, that's something that can be given to her, which would be very helpful.
Okay.
I hope, Nisha, I've answered your question. Is there anything else that you want to know?
No, I guess I've got my answer. And one quick question, can we
Yes.
approach NIOS for such things, or a state board will be a feasible option? Because the parent is a little rigid in terms of asking for concession. She doesn't want to go ahead with the
Which
concession.
board the child is currently in?
Right now, it's the Maharashtra board, the state board.
State board. Okay. See, to be honest, one is we need to also psychoeducate the parent. Psychoeducating the parent to know कि Baba, it is very natural that okay, the child has difficulty. This is a kind of a support that's been given. Now suddenly, shifting the child to NIOS or any other board, the child will still need the concession. So that is the time वो पहले का willingness रहेगा कि नहीं रहेगा. So that's the reason the first step is to educate the parent, to tell them that if you had a concern when it came to cooking, what did you do? You went back to your mother and you asked her the recipe. You tried 5 times and then you came up with one nice recipe, no? So in the similar way, if she has a concern and this is what she needs to get back and take the concession, then why not? Okay, see, I understand that parents have. I mean, today also when I did cancer report explanation, and this the child was diagnosed with ADHD. The parent asked me that, ma'am, nowhere in the mark sheet it will be mentioned, no, that he has ADHD. So I said, no, it will not be mentioned. Then she said, okay, I'm willing to give correct. We want to take ahead with the concession. Okay, so Nisha, first thing is psychoeducating to the parent, because irrespective any board they will go na, concession to लगेगा ही वो बच्चे को. Okay, and also making them aware that the confidence will go down And if there is a failure, it's all the more going to hamper the child. So why not avail the concession and help the child? Right? That is something that would be very helpful.
Thanks for this.
Yeah? Anytime,
Yeah.
anytime. Yeah, they ask about LD True. All right. Any other queries, anything participants that you want to ask or you want to share? All right. Thank you everyone for the wonderful feedback for the workshop. I shall see you all soon for another masterclass. And thank you so much everyone for joining in. Wonderful to meet all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Kumar has mentioned. All right. Thank you everyone. Bye.